Okay, listen, we're not trying to dog on the boys in black and white, but have the officials maybe lost their marbles in some cases this year? We'll make the call. Plus, Joe O'Donnell joins us to talk about what else the Minnesota Wild. As always, we're created by New Voice Studios, presented by SotaStick, brought to you by Jim Beam, BettorEdge, and Royal Credit Union. This is Season 3, Episode 120.
Marcus Foligno Fan Club, assemble! Not only is SotaStick.com the only place to get your official Marcus Foligno Fan Club tee, but it's also the only place to get all your favorite Wild team garb, plus so much more beyond hockey. Use code Bardown Beauties for 15% off your total purchase at SotaStick.com.
At Jim Beam, they know the importance of tradition, like chanting "Let's play hockey" prior to the start of each game, or playing the state of hockey anthem after a Wild win. This season, raise one to your fan family with the bourbon that invites us all to come as friends and leave as family. Jim Beam Bourbon Whiskey, the official bourbon whiskey partner of the Minnesota Wild and XL Energy Center. Remember, drink smart. Jim Beam Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume, copyright 2021, James B. Beam Distilling Company, Incorporate, Claremont, Kentucky.
From New Voice Studios.
Oh yeah, you betcha. Let's go to the boat.
Discombobulate on the spot.
Part of the Talk North Podcast Network.
Fly out to Russia personally.
Jesse Pierce.
This is off the rails. We're only a couple minutes in.
Alexis Pearson.
We're not going to throw batteries on the ice at, Kirill Kaprizov. We're not that crazy.
Bardown Beauties Podcast.
Was it about guys getting hammered down low night after night?
Everyone loves to crap on analytics, but the analytics do not lie here.
We are firing Fred at the top of the hour. More hit.
It's like tea. Tea.
Starts now.
Hello, everybody. We're back. Episode 120. We got Joe O'Donnell to talk Minnesota Wild as the regular season starts to wrap up. Alexis, that's Alexis Pearson. I'm Jesse Pierce, producer Fred, fired. Per standard, fired every week. He's pretty much fired. I don't know. Yeah, he's missing out. He's always missing out on the fun.
You want to hang out with us, Fred? What's up with that?
It's cool. Just can't hand our craziness. Today we get to go. I want to go crazy on the officials a little bit.
Oh, okay. You
know me. I usually play it pretty safe. Anybody that follows me on Twitter, I don't come at them too hard. However, there have been a slew of things this year that I just can't keep too quiet. And I understand officiating, it's a hard job. I'm not going to pretend that it's an easy thing to do, right? It's difficult. But let's begin with the all-encompassing recent officiating problem that is tossing people out before fights are even happening, scolding them and reprimanding them for chirping one another. I think it was Tampa Bay Lightning forward, forget his name now, former Blues player, who had said he's like, we can't even chirp each other in hockey anymore because we're getting penalized for it. Let's start there. We have plenty to go through that have directly affected the Wild. I know Alexis is chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I'm
ready. What are
your
thoughts on that? I do understand, all right, that Wayne Simmons is going to drop it with whomever, but you got to let them go then. Just let them do it and toss them afterward. I don't understand this new kind of soft approach that officials seem to be taking this year.
I'm a big fan of fighting in hockey. I know I'm kind of a rare breed nowadays.
Tell us about it.
There's a lot of people who don't like it anymore, who don't think it's necessary to the sport anymore. And I totally respect the opinion of those people who feel that way because hockey has changed. It's a much different game. And that's a fair argument to say, hey, I don't like that. I don't think it's necessary, whatever. I am not one of those people. I don't ever see myself becoming one of those people. So this is something that really frustrates me because I just think that chirping, fighting, physicality, all that stuff is so important to a game. And it might seem like a minor thing, all things aside, but it really can swing a game one way or the other for a team. And some teams really thrive off of that kind of hockey. And so if you take that away from them and you don't allow them to get to that kind of game, that really is a huge disadvantage to a team who thrives off of that kind of stuff. And so, and like the players are saying too, it's we can't even chirp anymore. I mean, that's part of what makes the game so fun. And
it's the best.
It's the best to watch as a fan. The guys love it. I mean, it's just something that's part of the game, and to try to take it away and not even allow them to get to that point. I mean, and chirping is hurting nobody, right? I mean, sure, if you want to say oh, I don't want them to fight. Okay. That's one thing, but so what you tell them they've never won a Stanley Cup. or they suck at the face-off dot, like who's that hurting? Like let them chirp each other. So I think it kind of sucks. I don't like it. And I don't know if they're doing it because they want to prevent bigger issues in physicality and fighting, or the officials are just tired of it. I don't know, but it's part of what we love about hockey. And I don't think that trying to prevent it is going to do, it's only going to make the players more angry. So I don't know what they're really trying to prevent here.
Like you're right. I mean, fighting has a place in time, much less than it did back when enforcers ruled the game, right? Like it's definitely a different game, and that's great because you love to see your boy Austin Matthews be able to put up 50 goals. However, you don't love to see, Trevor Zegras do his lacrosse goal and then Troy Terry have to answer for a beautiful goal because they were there. Like that goes at the fighting situation. We can go into a whole other thing. I just think officials not allowing some of those instances to happen, especially when they're going to happen. Yes, Wayne Simmons is going to go. Probably Foligno's going to go. Delorier is going to go. Let them go. Like, and especially chirp. I love chirping. I love chirping in my daily life. I brought it into my business now. That is what I love about hockey, especially when you hear some of the chirps that they come up with. Like, that's genius.
It's hilarious.
That's brilliant. It's hilarious. It's great. It's not just being like, you're dumb. Like they're clever. They're quick and they're clever. And I love it. Moving on now to other problems that officiating, moving on in my grievances with the officials. Where do you want to start? Do you want to talk about goalie interference?
Yes.
Alexis?
Yes.
Let's start with goalie interference. Do you know what goalie interference is?
I don't think anybody knows what goalie interference. Nobody knows, because this is the problem with goalie interference. Like, this is my biggest issue when at this point in my life, at this point in my hockey fandom, at this point in my career with sports, my biggest issue with officiating is I try so hard now to get past the like, oh, they're not calling the calls our way. I'm so mad about that. Yeah. I just want the consistency. Like, make up your mind what a penalty is or what a called off goal is for whatever situation and stick to it. That's what I think is most frustrating to most hockey fans, is like, we'll watch them call off goalie interference in one game and the next night the same thing happens and it's a goal. It's like, which one is it? It's hard as a hockey fan to, it's like, I want the officials to do their jobs well. I want to respect them for doing their jobs well. And I don't want their decisions to affect the outcome of a game. That's what it is at the end of the day. You want them to call the game correctly, and you don't want a bad call one way or the other to affect the outcome of a game. That's what it all comes down to. And especially with goalie interference, there's so many times a season that, and I'm not even talking just for the Wild, I've seen this across the board in the NHL where a bad call has gone the wrong way. It's affected the game. It's affected a team. And like I said, then the next night you see it called differently. And so it just needs to be more clear. And I know that some of these penalties and some of the goals they review, there is some gray areas. I get that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's also a lot of black and white areas that they're just completely ignoring as well. So it's just really frustrating to have. I mean, every time they review a goalie interference, I'm literally like, I have no idea what they're going to call. I have absolutely zero idea.
That was a back-to-back where Foligno gets called for goalie interference. Yes. So Dean challenges the next night the exact same situation that Foligno got called for. And they're like, nope, not goalie interference. Like, what? Like, and again, you're absolutely right. It has nothing to do with like what goes against the Wild. I'm definitely never playing that card because I'll credit like, hey, yeah, that was a slash. That was whatever. Fine. Yeah. But, and even goalie interference, there are certain instances where like, yeah, he did interfere, but I hate like a guy knocking another guy into the goalie. It's like, what did you expect him to do? Like, there's that whole force of motion thing, and object motion tends to stay in motion. Yeah. I wasn't any good at it, but I know that much. So I think it's a lack of consistency when it comes to goalie interference. Now let's move on to embellishment, which the Minnesota Wild were stymied with on Friday against the St. Louis Blues in that overtime loss. Again, that's another one. Just get rid of it. Like, I don't think guys are ever really trying, although you do see certain players that have, and I'm not going to name them, but I mean, it certainly has. I don't think Bukestad is a guy that's taken a dive, right? And he was the one called for embellishing. And again, certain things have, I think, just do away with the embellishing penalty in general, unless it's egregious and unless you're like, oh no, man, like right near you. But I mean, in most cases, I don't think that's thing, because then you're going to remove that. I don't know. What are your takes on embellishment in the game, Alexis?
I have a pretty hard stance on embellishment. And I've kind of like, I've said this for a very long time. I think my biggest issue with embellishment, I don't so much have an issue with it being a penalty. like you said, it's so far and few between that somebody is actually trying to embellish a play. I mean, you really want to take the chance of like, I'm going to pretend he tripped me and take myself out of the play and hope the official calls this penalty. And maybe it'll be an odd man run. You know, it's like, there's so many things. It's like, you have to make that decision so quickly. Most guys are not going to commit to an embellishment in a play. They're just not. So the amount of times it truly is an embellishment is so far and few between in an NHL season across the board for all teams. My biggest issue with embellishment is when they call the trip or the slash or whatever, as well as an embellishment. It is one or the other. Either there was a penalty committed and he tripped or slashed him or pushed or cross-checked him,
like the
or
Beauties
he embellished.
Yes, like you can't have both.
You can't have both. And that's my biggest problem is when they call both of them. Pick one. It's one or the other. So I don't really care if they keep the embellishment penalty. I'm okay with that. It's my bigger issue is calling both of them at the same time, because that just, it completely eliminates what embellishment is. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to call a tripping penalty, and Bukestad fell on the trip, but he embellished the fall from the trip. And it's like, what? Like, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it's just, it's so a little ridiculous.
I get it. I mean, the thing is like, and I think that officials should be able to be critiqued. We should be able to talk about this stuff. At the same time, I understand that the game is a fast sport. Things happen quickly. It can be hard to, I'm sure it's hard to make a decision in a split second. You know, was this a penalty? How did this go? And you can't, I mean, most penalties, you can't review them other than like a cross check or stuff like that. So when it comes to penalties, you're making a split second decision in a very fast game on what is this, call. I mean, officials get chirped at if they take 3 seconds to make a call. It's like, if their arm isn't up right away, they're like, why'd you wait so long to call that penalty? So it's like, you do have to make a fast decision. But I just think at the end of the day, the consistency, and I've seen that from people across the board on Twitter, all teams, all fans, all, reporters across all fan bases and whatnot, saying like, hey, it really, the consistency is the issue here. So it's just too bad when it affects the outcome of the game. I can, a bad call is going to happen. It happens to every team here and there.
Right.
And we can all live with that.
They're humans. Like officials are human. Like, I'm not trying to just be like, oh, I hate you and you and you. Like, I get, again, it's hard, mistakes happen. The game's fast. Like, it's totally, but some of these certain grievances I'm finally laying out are real. They're real problems. I embellish sometimes, Alexis. I should tell you that. When I'm playing Beat the Butte, I take a dive for you fans. Beat the Butte on Tuesdays against me. You like that segue? You're
just a giver. You're a woman of the people.
I'm a woman of the people. I take the dive so you guys can win and have some fun. BettorEdge, BettorEdge.com. Free $10 with the code Buttes, BEAUTS. Thursdays against Alexis, Tuesdays against me. Plus you can bet on hockey, basketball, whatever your thing is. Be sure to check them out. They're awesome dudes. Support them, give them love. One final grievance I'm going to air before we take a break and head to Joe O'Donnell. Sorry, Joe. Joe O'Donnell, rather. This is why I'm not on radio, guys. Like, for real radio. Is Kirill Kaprizov not getting any freaking calls, and I don't know when that's going to end. Like, when he's going to be acknowledged as the superstar that I think we in Minnesota know he is, because again, a lot of the straight up cross checks to his back, a lot of the very, again, egregious penalties that he takes night after night without getting called for him. That's not happening to Connor McDavid. That's not happening to Austin Matthews. That's not even happening to Patrick Kane these days. So Alexis, what's your take on that? I mean, for me, it's so frustrating, especially because it's going to result in injury to the best player. He's probably already beaten and bruised, and God bless Kaprizov, that little bulldog. He'll fight back, he'll push back, and he, is going to continue to work hard. But especially as you get into this part of the season, into the playoffs, where you're probably going to double shift him of all things in overtimes too. Can't be a guy that has to take those penalties without Minnesota coming back and getting the power play opportunities anymore.
The biggest thing for me is the injury thing, because if you allow players, and I'm not even just saying for the superstars, for everybody, this is a big reason why we have penalty calls, right? Because you want to prevent injury. If somebody does something that could possibly hurt the player, a cross check, a slash, all this stuff, you can't do it because it's dangerous to the opponent, right? And so that's the biggest thing for me, is the more you allow things like that to happen, the more guys who will test the waters and say, oh, okay, well, I might throw a cross check in there, or I might push him around a little bit more. And it just increases the chance of injury. So that's one. Two, this kind of goes back full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning about chirping and fighting and all of that. If you allow this stuff to happen and aren't calling penalties when a penalty is committed, I'm not saying you have to like call soft things and you know, someone breathes in his direction and throw him in the penalty box. Call it if it's a penalty, don't call it if it's not. But if you allow cross checks to happen, you know, punches to the head after the play, all these things that we've seen happen to Kaprizov over the course of the season, you're only going to see more guys on the team want to stand up for him, which is going to lead to more chirping and more fighting and possibly more injury to not only Kaprizov, but everyone who gets involved. So it kind of goes full circle. It's like you're partially calling penalties because okay, it gives the team an advantage and you can't let them do that, but also because you're trying to keep everybody on the ice safe. So it is frustrating. And I don't know what the reason for it is, why certain players, you know, don't get certain calls when you see other players get them. Hopefully it changes at some point. You know, even like the Trent Frederick hit back, you know, months ago that took Kaprizov out. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that you have to be more aware of those situations. And the only reason he wasn't out longer was because the Wild had such a strange schedule because of COVID at the time. He would have missed likely, you know, 4, 5, 6 games, maybe if they were playing a normal schedule. So it is frustrating. You just want everyone to stay safe. And that goes for everybody in the NHL, not just the superstars. But the attention is a little extra on them just because they're so involved in so many plays. We see more of the superstars. And that's why things like this look more egregious when they don't get the calls.
Right. Shout out to your boy, Austin Matthews, by the way.
I love him.
Like that. God,
love him.
So good.
So good. Yeah.
So good.
Just skilling it up. You know how it goes.
50 and 50. No big deal. Just doing it with some style too.
Can we call that like a double-double? Can we make that like an NHL double-double? I'm going to go with that. Sure. Yeah. So congrats to
Look at you bringing your Timberwolves love and you're just living your best. Lex over here living her best life.
We love a good crossover.
Can't go wrong with that. Before we take a quick break and get to Joe O'Donnell, I do want to give a shout out to Royal Credit Union for joining us. Thank you for jumping on as one of our advertisers. They're awesome. Be sure to go check them out. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Joe O'Donnell. Stay tuned.
It's hockey season, baby, and the best way to head into a new season is to be fully equipped with all the merch you need to cheer on your favorite teams. Oh, and some Bardown Beauties merch too, right? Right. We've got you covered. Literally, head over to teespring.com where you can find all kinds of custom design Bardown Beauties apparel, plus so much more.
We're back. Joining us now, the newest voice for the Minnesota Wild Radio Network, Joe O'Donnell. I guess not new anymore, right? You're an old seasoned vet at this point with only 14 regular season games left to go, something like that. The number's probably off, guys.
I think it's 12 now. You were close.
Yeah, you know, somewhere around. I changed the board. The board has the correct record up for a change. Finally.
People roast Jesse every single week.
People come for me, Joe.
Record on there.
But you never come for me, Joe. Welcome. You're officially a Butte before Dan Myers, so congratulations for that.
Wow. That is quite an honor.
Yeah.
And he'll be pretty rattled, so that's even better. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. What's going on? So you were house hunting today. Let's start there, because what people don't know is you actually still live in Des Moines. You just come up this way, up 35 there to stay. What area were you looking? Did you listen to my advice and come northeast, or are you going against my wishes?
We've been looking all over. This is my lavish accommodations in the Residence Inn in St. Paul. I'll head to the XL Energy Center here in a minute. Well, not a minute, about an hour or so. And yeah, so we've been kind of looking all over. Today I was looking in Woodbury. Yesterday I was in Rosemont. But yeah, the family, my wife, Karen, our 3 boys are still holding it down in West Des Moines and in Waukee, Iowa, great suburb. We've owned a house there for a handful of years. We love it there, but really looking forward to getting them up here at some point and making this much more permanent.
Our boy Chris Peters is in Waukee, isn't he?
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah, he's always at Iowa Wild games back in the day. Nice to see him having such great success. He really dives in there. He's very good at his job, obviously, but very determined as well, as I think you guys know.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Joe and I work together, and I literally just today found out that you commute to the XL Energy Center for Wild games, so that, you know, we learn something new every day. You're
She's
just
a terrible coworker.
I didn't even know.
She's a terrible coworker, Joe.
But I don't ever see you.
That's
true.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear me telling you we're 10 seconds back from break.
Yeah.
Okay, take it out of this, take it out of that.
The thing that I love about Alexis, Jesse, is that she yells "go" when the mics are hot. Like she's she'll be like, "Hey, 30 back" or whatever. She does a great job giving Tom Reed and I a heads up. And then she's like, go.
It's so loud in the XL Energy Center. So because the thing is
probably not
like,
with headphones on. I feel like with headphones, it's probably okay.
And I'm already allowed. I could probably not yell, and it would still sound like I'm yelling because that's how loud my voice is. As most
producer
people,
Fred has her mic turned like all the way down, and mine all the way up because I'm a little quiet. I'm a little quieter by comparison.
I always ask the engineers on the road if they can keep me a hair lower than they would normally for a play-by-play guy, because in those moments where it's loud in the arena and the goal calls, I tend to get louder than I think some, maybe not most, maybe most. I'm not sure if you pulled NHL radio guys, but I don't ever want to be in the red. You don't ever want to peak. That's like a radio guy's nightmare. So I'm very, having managed my own board, if you will, for so many years in the American League and the ECHL, where you bring your own equipment, you set it all up, you're mixing it yourself. So if it's screwed up, it's your fault. I try and talk to the engineers, like, can you just keep me a touch lower so I have a little more room to get excited? So
there you go.
Yeah. Anyway,
what's the most exciting goal call you've ever called in your career? I gotta know. Like, I mean, what really brings back the memes? I
would say the goal scored by Cal O'Reilly that essentially sealed the playoff berth for the Iowa Wild 6 years into existence.
Nice.
Hadn't made the playoffs, so it was a goal in overtime to beat the Wolves. Andrew Hammond made an unbelievable save at one end on a 2-on-1 in overtime, and O'Reilly kind of somehow came up with the puck and was on a breakaway. Honestly, getting goosebumps thinking about it.
Let's hear it. Can you recall it?
No, I don't know. I don't know how some broadcasters do it. I don't work on demand like that.
That's gonna cost extra, Jesse.
That's gonna I know, right?
I don't know, like, if you were like, hey, get on Cameo and tell my, it's my kid's birthday, have him scoring a goal, like that stuff's hard to fake for me. So it just wouldn't sound right, at least to me. So, but yeah, that was a moment that was huge for the Iowa Wild's history to get in the playoffs. I'm like, if you were like, are you happy with the call? Like, I'm 90% happy with it. I kind of got really excited when Hammond made this unbelievable save and the puck was bouncing around, so it wasn't as clean as I would have liked. But anyway, that's definitely a big goal call, a big moment. And early on in my career, I was with the Idaho Steelheads in Boise in the ECHL, and they won the 2007 Kelly Cup. And I was fortunate enough to be that was my second full season there. So to call that playoff run and to call a championship is what, a lot of reasons why people like myself are in this business, right? It's for those big moments. So there's been a lot over the years, but those are a couple of them.
Well, speaking of big moments, do you think we may see some of those for the Wild in the playoffs, as you've now been in your first season here with the Minnesota Wild? Pretty exciting season to have you join along with, and it's been a lot of fun, and we're now winding it down here, at least for the regular season. What have been your thoughts from a broadcaster perspective of this team, getting to see them night in and night out? And do you think they've got a little extra gas in the tank for playoffs this season?
I sure hope so. I love watching this team play. Tom Reed has seen like every single game in Wild history, and he's been saying it for a while now that this is maybe the most exciting team, the most fun team that he's ever seen. So from that standpoint, it's a great year to join the organization at the NHL level on a more full-time basis. Obviously, I've followed this franchise for a long time now, being within the organization at the AHL level. But I think they have what it takes to make a run. I've kind of liked this group all year long. I've liked their vibe. I've liked their chemistry. I've liked the way they've approached things. And they've talked about it like since day one of camp, being like, this is a group that has something special. And I don't think that was just coach speak or cliche. Like, I think they really believed in the room that they've got a special team. So I'm excited for the big moments that come ahead, hopefully clinching a playoff spot here soon. Kaprizov's on the verge of the goal record. Can he get to 100 points? I mean, those are milestones and things that are going to be exciting for the fan base as the year moves along.
Since you are so familiar with the AHL guys in particular, having worked with the Iowa Wild for as long as you did, want to get your feelings on some of those guys that have made a splash so far in the NHL, whether that's Dewar and Duhaime and, Kalen Addison. What do you think of him? Why is he still down in Iowa, not up? Rossi, Boldy. Tell us some of your thoughts on some of those guys that Minnesota Wild fans are now getting a glimpse of.
Well, Boldy, we hope returns obviously here very shortly from injury. I'll start there. I was actually up in Minnesota doing a remote broadcast last year with Tom Reed when Boldy made his AHL debut. But since that night, he's just been dominant really at the pro level. It was fun watching him. The games I did get to see him in the American Hockey League last year. Just, you knew he was going to be a star because it seemed like that league was almost too easy for him. And coming out of college, when you see that, you're like, wow. Like, he just protects the puck so well. He's able to use his size, his edge work on his skate. His skating is phenomenal. He's only going to get bigger. Mm-hmm. Just turned 21. I mean, let's keep that in mind. Like, he's still growing essentially. So I think he's only going to get better. I think he's hit a little bit of a bump as far as, his NHL games. I just looked he's been hurt for a few games, but his last goal is March the 13th. So, I expect him to get back on the score sheet here relatively quickly and continue to be a great NHL player for a long time. Kalen Addison, I really enjoyed watching him last year and talking with, guys like Alex Tanguay and other coaches and scouts, last year or so. Like, they just feel like he has that offensive ability and sort of that innate ability to work the power play, to control the blue line, moving laterally along the blue line, like things that are hard to teach. Mm-hmm. Kalen Addison just seems to do that naturally. So I don't know why he's still there, kind of as you put it. I get it. And I give Bill Guerin a lot of credit. He's not rushing any of these guys. Mm-hmm. And for years, the Wild organization would sign a kid out of college or draft a kid, and they didn't put in the time in the AHL that some organizations almost require players to. Mm-hmm. You look at the Dallas Stars. So many of their players spent years with the Texas Stars. Yeah. In Detroit, the Grand Rapids Griffins won 2 Calder Cups there, and those players were, 200 games into their AHL career before they got a chance in the NHL. So Milwaukee and Nashville have done the same thing with their affiliation for a long time, forcing guys essentially to earn it there. And I don't think it can hurt Kalen Addison or Marco Rossi. And Bill Guerin would know. I mean, he ran the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in some regards. He obviously spent a ton of time in Pittsburgh. They have a great farm system and the way that connection works. So, yeah, I think the future is bright. That's the most encouraging thing for Minnesota and the fan base, is that for years, the cupboard was sort of bare. And now with Carson Lambos and Wallstead and Ryan O'Rourke and Damon Hunt, these are all kids that are in junior hockey. You've got college potential additions as well coming down the line here. So I just think it's a really fun time to be a Wild fan, because the team is young as far as the organization and their prospects go. And that's important for long-term success.
Hashtag Ben Myers watch, right? Everyone's keeping it. Do you think that that's I mean, I know that's obviously not quite your area, but what are your thoughts on?
Look, they could use a centerman, right? We've talked about it. And I tend to believe the old Russo hockey on Twitter
after Alexis and Jesse, right? Like,
yes.
Third follow.
Yes. I go to you guys first. And then I'm like, to verify what's Russo saying.
Yes. Perfect.
But where there's smoke, there's fire. When there's Russo, there's usually something to it. Like, he's not just putting stuff out there. Yeah. I've come to learn that over the years. I'm sure it drives the organization crazy at times, but if he's onto something, and he said there's a possibility, so I wouldn't rule it out.
Well, you mentioned the fans and how exciting of a time it is to be a Wild fan or an Iowa Wild fan, whatever may have you. And I want to ask you about your adjustment to joining the Minnesota Wild as the play-by-play broadcaster for the radio and kind of getting accustomed to these fans. I think what a lot of people don't understand about radio is there's that little added element of, on TV, you see the face of the broadcaster. It feels more intimate, like you're getting to know them. On radio, you have to do a little bit more work to describe the game, and people don't get to see your face and maybe get to know you as easily as TV. What has that transition been like for you? Getting used to the fans and making that connection and getting adjusted to NHL hockey on the radio.
It's for radio. I'm good. I love everything about my job. This has been an unbelievable season for me. It's been so much fun. The other night in St. Louis might have been the best atmosphere for an NHL game that I've personally called. That's, on the road. I should specify that because XL Energy Center has been rocking all year. I mean, so many thrilling wins and great crowds, but I have been kind of surprised at times on the road. There have been either empty seats or kind of a dead building. I mean, Vegas notwithstanding, and some of the arenas. But when you're going to play a team that's out of the playoffs late in the season on the road, like sometimes, look, my hometown of Philadelphia, there might not have been 10,000 people at that game. And that's just a reality. But the other night, St. Louis was packed. It was energetic. It felt like a playoff game. The crowd was into it. And that's the reason I do what I do. That's why I, wanted to get to the NHL. And that's why I wanted to be a broadcaster. It's like those moments, whether it's you score the overtime winner on the road and the place is dead silent, or the goal horn's blaring and the crowd's going crazy at home. Like those are the big moments that really are so rewarding for a broadcaster, in my opinion. But I've loved it up here so far this year. It's been great. The Wild fans travel really well, which I don't know if a lot of people know that, but the other night in DC, I was on the concourse and a couple of fans stopped me, and they were like,
big deal.
Well, hang on. Here's the funny part. They weren't like, are you the radio guy? Because they were like, are you on Wild Amplified? And I was like, really? You guys watch Wild? You guys watch Wild Amplified? So anyway, it's been fun to get to know the fans. Obviously this is such a great market in the entire state for hockey. And the fact that the Minnesota Wild Radio Network goes to so many affiliates across the state and beyond is really cool for me. And, for the most part, I knew it'd be hard coming in to try and, I don't even want to say replace somebody like Bob Kurtz, but just, to slowly kind of fill up some of those games. He didn't, his schedule, he wanted to back off a bit. And to get the opportunity to kind of come in to sit there and next to Tom Reed, who is an unbelievable person, and him and Bob have been so gracious to me over the last couple of years. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. This is a demanding fan base. It's a smart fan base. You better be on your game. So I hope the fans out there, the listeners, have enjoyed it so far, because I'm having a blast.
What's the hardest name to pronounce? What's the one that you struggle with, whether it's not with the Wild or, opposing teams? I forget, who was it that you said when was starting to net and you're like, man, I don't like that one.
Yeah. Elvis Merzlikins.
Yes, Merzlikins. That's what it was.
Tom has a hard time with that one too.
Yeah. And I've seen, Elvis. So Traverse City, Michigan has that great NHL prospects tournament that the Wild participate in for so long. It's usually 8 NHL teams. Detroit's the host. And so I've seen a lot of these kids like before they were even ready to turn pro, essentially. And one year it was Merzlikins, I think, in Corpusalo maybe, for Columbus and net. And you're just like, come on, guys. Like, can we have a Smith or a Jones play goal one of these games? So,
right.
For the most part, I try and keep notes on all of it so I can refer back. Like if I get it one time in October from the home team, whichever team we're playing, like, all right, here's how you say the name. I don't want to have to go back in 2 months and be like, what was it? Johansson or Johansson? So, but yeah, Merzlikins this year, for whatever reason in Columbus, I don't know if it's because he made a lot of saves or what, but it was just one of those where I was like, can we just get this game over with?
I gotta appreciate that. When guys are new to the team, when there's a trade deadline, people are switching numbers, how long does it take you to kind of make that adjustment visually when you're watching? Like, I know for me, I still see Kulikov and I'm like, Kulikov, not Nico Sturm. I mean, they don't look anything alike, but I've had ingrained number 7. How about for you? I imagine it's a quicker transition because I don't need to know right then and there. I got some time.
Well, it has to be a quicker transition, but I will say the Sturm Kulikov was sort of a little bit of a mind game for me as well. But yeah, that part of it's not too bad. And the nice thing is now I've seen every team. So some of the players that are in the bottom 6, the non-superstars that maybe you don't know unless you follow a certain team, starting to have a much better handle on all those players. Again, a lot of these guys I've seen over 13 years in the American Hockey League come up, and so I saw them there. Now it's interesting. Sometimes they're pronounced differently than they were in the minors.
Sure.
And like I swear forever in Milwaukee it was Yusei Saros, and they're calling him Yusi. You see, like it's a small difference, but it's a big difference if his family's listening, which they're probably not to me, but you get my point. Like, that's why I take that part of my job very seriously. I want to get the pronunciations right. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I call him Kirill instead of Kirill. I've heard his audio pronunciation. Kevin Faunos does a nice job getting every player to say their name in their hometown. I listened to it probably close to 50 times. To me, he says Kirill, not Kirill. I don't know if anybody's been listening going, this guy's crazy, can't pronounce the best player's name right.
Think even I've noticed that. That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. I almost didn't even bring it up because now I'm going to open up a can of worms.
Now you open up a can of worms. Now everybody, and now I'm swirling. Like, what is it? I've been calling him Kirill too. That's
if anybody listens,
the t-shirts, the Kirill, the thrill shirts, they're blanking those. I'm telling you.
Dollar bill Kirill. Like, I get it. It rolls off the tongue a little bit easier, I guess, but I don't know. Anyway.
If anyone listens to that answer, they're just going to be mesmerized by you complimenting Faunos for doing something good in his job. So they're going to skip right over the whole Kaprizov thing and just be focused in on that. So
I laid that right up there for you, Alexis.
Exactly.
Joe, we're going to talk about in segment 3 of the podcast today. We're going to talk about a player who surprised us this season in a good way, who's gone above and beyond expectations.
Not named Kirill or Kirill, whichever, either way.
Not Kaprizov. But I think you could say that about a lot of players this season who've really just gone above and beyond. And I think that's a big reason why collectively the Wild have had success this season. What has to you been, as someone who's watched so many seasons of hockey and now got a chance to see a handful of games of this Minnesota Wild team, what to you has been the most pleasant surprise? And it doesn't even have to be a specific player, but just something this Minnesota Wild team has done either individually or as a whole really well that you think you can attribute to the success the Wild have had this season?
I think that's a hard question to answer because you could go so many ways with it, right? Hashtag depth, which we know has been a touchy subject, at least nationally with this team. But I really believe in this group. I think it starts at the top. I just think, again, look, you can say what you want about teams that are close. And Bill Guerin and we did an interview the other day for Amplified, and he mentioned, like, there's a lot of talk about teams that are close because they have parties or they barbecue together, they drink beers together. But honestly, it's about playing for each other when it matters, right? And this team, they have that. I think the communication, from what I can tell, is great from management to the coaches to the players. I think there's a giant respect factor there. And I think the leadership group is just, they're outstanding. And Dean Evison said it 1,000 times this year. Jared Spurgeon leads the charge. He's such a good person, such a welcoming person. There are no cliques with this hockey team. And I really believe that's important for not only the success they've had, but the success that they're potentially going to have. But you could look at any number of players too, Alexis. And I mean, Zuccarello, very, very underrated, I think nationally. He's had an outstanding season defensively and just some of the things he does to help drive that line. Ryan Hartman's having a great year. Marcus Foligno's having a great year. Foligno fan club. I know I don't need to tell you that, but Jake Middleton has stepped in and done just such a great job since he's been acquired. This team, again, like, sure, they've had a rough patch or two, but everybody goes through it. But for the most part, when their backs are to the wall or when they know they need a big performance or, hey, we got to get back in the win column tonight, this team has stepped up and delivered, whether it's, been a kid like Boldy or Dewar or Duhaime, like some of these young guys shipping in, or the veteran players, filling the void, Jordy Ben coming in or John Merrill coming in and not leaving the lineup. Then, these guys have just, they seem to really like each other. And I don't think enough people value that. So to me, it's just sort of like a collective group effort. And that's how I'd sum up this season. They've had magic since night one when Foligno scored with 7 seconds left. You can't start a season any more thrilling of a way than that, really. And they haven't let us down most of the night, on a pace for most goals in franchise history, most points, most wins. This team's going to be a handful in the playoffs.
It's exciting. We get to see them in action against the Los Angeles Kings tonight. Matt Boldy expected to return. Looking forward to that. I'm guessing Marc-Andre Fleury, if Dean Evison continues his rotation. Jonathan Quick in net for the visiting team. There you go, Joe. I just gave you those heads up, those pointers for the broadcast.
We're actually just going to cut and paste that and use that in segment.
Yeah, if you just want to use that on the radio, that would be great. So sounds good. Joe, we're going to let you go. But again, thank you for taking the time to join us here. We look forward to calling you an official Minnesota resident soon, and keep up the great work with all the calls you're doing.
Thank you guys. Enjoy working with you, even though I don't get to see you, Alexis. I hope you guys know.
I'm going to be in the press box today, so I might see you up there today.
Beautiful. But I do want to say I appreciate all you guys do. I know that you put in a lot of work behind the scenes, very professional. You do a great job. So thanks for having me on.
Appreciate
thanks,
that,
Joe. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is producer Fred. I just wanted to ask everyone to go out there and spread the word about Bardown Beauties. Leave us a like, share, thumbs up, review, you name it, we want to hear from you. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, your favorite podcast app.
We're back. Shout out to JoJo. He is the best. Him and I get to hang out in visiting teams' locker rooms, ask the questions. And he's crushing it on the call. So I'm really happy for him. He's definitely busted his ass to get there, as we all do in this crazy sports media world. So he's awesome. I'm curious now. I feel like I want to ask Kaprizov the next time we get him, like, Kirill or Kirill, just because I want to know. I mean, I'm going to call you Kaprizov to be safe, but like, it's interesting. Very interesting.
And I think sometimes players too, like, will just allow someone wants to say their name wrong and then everybody just runs with it. And it's like, just tell us if we're wrong. We'll fix it. Like,
it was Granlund. I could not remember it, right? It was right. Cause it was, is it
when
Mikhail
he got traded
or Mikhail? And and he finally like switched it. We're like, oh my God, we called him the wrong name for the longest
Even
time.
Kaprizov, his last name before he came to the Wild, everyone thought it was Kaprizov.
And
then like once he was signed, like I don't remember who, maybe Russo tweeted, somebody tweeted, they're like, actually the correct way he's saying to say his name is Kaprizov. So
I think it was Falmouth. Somebody told us on damn it. All right. Anyway, speaking of non-Kaprizov names that are easy to pronounce, Ryan Hartman, Matt Boldy, Marcus Foligno. Those are the three questions. We had asked this earlier in the year, but this week's up for debate. We've kind of readdressed it as far as the biggest surprise. All three of these guys certainly been surprising in a very good way for the Minnesota Wild club. Alexis, do I even need to ask who your biggest surprise is?
Well, you're going to change
it.
Here we go. So first of all, I'm going to throw Boldy off because I think people have expected this out of him. The only reason I included him is you never really know what you're going to get out of a player in their rookie season. It can take some longer to adjust than others. And I think he's had a very good season, given the fact that he's a rookie. You know, he's dealing with an injury right now, but I've been impressed with him. But I think a lot of people expected him to play like this. So to me, it was between Marcus Foligno and Ryan Hartman. I'm going to go with Ryan Hartman just because I don't know if it's because of what he's getting paid. Nobody expected this out of him. I don't know if it's because he's never done this with the Wild before. Nobody expected this. But I just think he's so quiet about it too. I mean, he just goes about it every single day, gets the job done. He scored some big time goals. He's a feisty guy. He's that team player. And I just think that this is one, if Marcus Foligno, finding a little bit of a scoring touch to his game is surprising, but to me, the Ryan Hartman one is a lot more surprising. So I'm going to go with Hartsey, just because night in and night out, I'm so impressed with him and what he's brought to the table this season and the consistency he's been able to have with it. I think a lot of people thought when he first did this, they're like, oh, this is a great 10 games for him, but it's like, no, this is a great season for him. As we're now down to just over 10 games left in the season. So Ryan Hartman is my answer. Jesse, who are you going to go with?
I mean, I think it's hard to disagree with Ryan Hartman. He's a bottom six guy always in my head, right? Like he's not a top player. So, but for sake of conversation, I will say Matt Boldy, because he is a first round pick, right? So he comes with these expectations. He struggled in college up until his last year or two, right? And he was in the AHL, and there was that patience, as we talked about with Joe in segment 2, and as we've talked about at length before. So I think the surprise isn't necessarily that he's good. It's that he was so good so quickly. And, it's certainly, he's kind of come back down to earth. He's still performing at a very high level, but that immediate chemistry he formed with Kevin Fiala was surprising to me, because I think it was hard for Fiala to find a liney that he could connect with. And so that's the surprise. Again, it's not necessarily that, because I've been high on Matt Boldy since the All-American Prospects game that was held in St. Paul before he was drafted. Like, I knew there was something special. So it's not necessarily the talent wise, it's just that how quickly he adjusted to the NHL game, how quickly he was able to really produce at that elite level was a little surprising, I think. And again, rightfully so in the best way possible.
Well, and he went from, being just your average rookie to being talked about for Calder. And
right.
Listen, this was mostly Minnesota fans saying this because obviously the
NHL dropped it so low, like, maybe,
the players who are most likely to get nominated for the Calder are pretty far above Boldy, but he, for a hot minute, people were talking about like, hey, we should, if he keeps up this pace, he could very well maybe be a sneaky, dark horse here for the Calder trophy. So obviously that subsided a bit. He hasn't had the points production we saw a little earlier in the season. Like I said, he's been injured here, but I think that's a great point though. The speed at which he's developed has been pretty remarkable.
And not only that, he was injured quite a bit in Iowa, right? And he had that bad injury to start the year too, that delayed his debut with the club. So, I mean, just in general, I think it's been a welcome surprise, but all three of them, as you'd mentioned, Alexis, Foligno, it's great. I do agree. It's great that he's added the scoring touch. I think that surprised himself, but also you've been in the NHL for a while now, bud, and you're playing at a different role a little bit. So that's great that he just kind of found that part of the game. It's probably not all in all surprising. And Hartsey too, I think he's, like you said, the second biggest surprise. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you as always, to everybody for tuning in, listening. Shout out to SotaStick.com. Don't forget, you can buy all your garb over there. Minnesota Wild, Minnesota Twins, Vikings.
Yeah, baseball season, baby.
Baseball season. Oh God. All right. I mean, I love baseball season. It's great. I love drinking during the day and watching games. So that's my thing. Shout out to BettorEdge, BettorEdge.com. Code Beauts, BEAUTS will get you a free $10 to play Beat the Butte. Tuesdays against Jesse, Thursdays against Alexis. Shout out to Jim Beam. Cheers to you. Cheers to me. And shout out to Royal Credit Union, our newest advertiser. So thank you to Talk North for featuring us on their network, helping us get some of those advertisers in-house. We'd love to hear it. If you want to advertise, do it now before we fill up to be crazy busy.
Yeah. The line is out the door.
Line is out the door to be a part of the Bardown Beauties. You want to get in. We're hot, baby. And shout out to all of you guys for listening. Again, don't forget to share, rate. Alexis is crushing it on our social media content. So if you've seen any of those graphics, please do what they say, because they're telling you to do really cool things. Subscribe, right? Listen to the episodes, whatever.
Click the link.
We are so thankful for all of you again. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Have a good one.